Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, sift through them, and pull out the key insights, really aiming to speed up your understanding and give you those aha moments.
That's the goal. We want this to be useful for you, the learner, especially if you want to grasp things quickly but thoroughly, without getting bogged down.
Okay, so today we're digging into some clips from a YouTube video. It's called Buddha Episode 5, Full HD from Modi Studios. It's quite dramatic.
Yeah, it's important to remember this is a fictionalized account, a story. So we're looking at the narrative itself, the conflicts and ideas within that story.
Right. And our mission for you today is really to explore some key conflicts and decisions in this specific narrative.
Exactly. We'll be looking at things like leadership, justice, compassion, all within this depiction of ancient India.
Okay, let's jump right in. There's this major crisis early on, a grain shortage.
In the new city, people are hungry, apparently dying, and the grain deliveries have just stopped.
And the official who was supposed to handle it, Gauri, well, he's gone missing.
Which is already a bit suspicious, because wasn't he caught lying in the assembly before this?
He was, yes. So not the most trustworthy character to begin with, perhaps.
And then there's this order. An order supposedly from the king that stopped the grain delivery.
Gauri's claim, or what's suggested, is that a royal soldier brought him this order.
But the king, he completely denies it, says he never issued such an order.
And he even has proof, or what he claims is proof, the seal on the letter.
Ah, right, the seal. He says it's a fake.
Yeah, something about the texture. It's rough, like an iron forgery, not smooth like the real gold seal should be.
Okay, so that throws everything into question. If the order is fake, Gauri disobeyed. Well, nothing, technically. But if he thought it was real.
Well, the charge being leveled is treason. For disobeying a royal order, even if the king now says it wasn't his, it's messy.
It really is. So the core question for Gauri is, was he genuinely tricked, just following what he believed were legitimate orders? Or was he, involved in something else, some kind of deceit?
It puts the whole idea of authority and trust under a microscope, doesn't it? How do you function when you can't be sure if an order is real, especially when lives are at stake?
Precisely. And the assembly isn't waiting around. They're calling for Gauri's head, basically. Immediate justice for this alleged treason.
But then Siddhartha steps in, Prince Siddhartha, and he does something quite unexpected.
He takes responsibility.
Yeah, he takes responsibility for Gauri's actions, which seems odd.
Well, his reasoning is interesting. He says, essentially, I put Gauri in charge of this. He failed, so I should bear the consequences of that failure.
That's a very different take on leadership, especially back then, you'd think. What does that signal to you, the learner, about his developing character?
It's definitely unconventional. And you can imagine the reaction.
Oh, yeah. His stepmother, Mahadevi, she's distraught. She pleads for him, saying he's young, he's innocent, don't punish him.
And the king, his father, he must be torn. Duty versus love for his son.
Initially, he actually agrees with the premise. He says, okay, the one who takes responsibility should be punished, which means Siddhartha.
So he's willing to punish his own son based on this principle Siddhartha himself brought up. Wow.
It really forces you, the learner, to think about what responsibility means. Is Siddhartha's act noble? Or is it maybe sidestepping the real issue of Gauri's potential guilt or innocence?
Does taking the blame actually fix the underlying problem? It's a complex ethical point.
But the king, he continues to wrestle with it, and his view actually shifts again.
Ah, okay. How so?
He eventually decides that, no, the ultimate responsibility isn't Siddhartha's, and maybe not even just Gauri's, it's his, the king's.
Because he appointed Gauri in the first place.
Exactly. He says a king's duty is to provide for his people, and in this, he failed.
That's a huge admission, a real evolution in his thinking about his own role.
And he's ready to face the consequences himself. He prepares to be whipped, saying something like, a king's duty is to punish, but a father's duty is to bear the punishment.
That's powerful. It suggests a leadership that's not just about command, but about deep personal accountability. What does that say to you about the ideal qualities of a ruler, as presented here?
It's incredibly dramatic, and just as he's about to be punished...
Let me guess. Another twist.
You got it. Gauri reappears, and he has the letter. The supposed royal order.
Ah, so the proof, or lack thereof, is finally presented. The whole question of responsibility hinges on that piece of paper again.
Exactly. The king's journey here, his changing understanding of justice and his own role, it's fascinating. It makes you ask, what is justice in this context? Is it just following rules or something deeper?
It seems to suggest that true leadership involves introspection, empathy, and maybe owning failures that go beyond just individual mistakes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. There's another conflict, more personal this time, but it also touches on these big themes. It involves an injured bird.
Ah, yes, the bird incident. Devadatta, Siddhartha's cousin, right? He shoots a bird.
He does. And he claims it's his by hunter's right. I wounded it, therefore it's mine. The traditional view, perhaps.
But Siddhartha finds the bird injured and protects it. He doesn't argue about who shot it first. His argument is about duty.
What kind of duty?
The duty to protect the vulnerable. A completely different principle than the hunter's right. So you immediately have this clash of values. For you, the learner, how do these two viewpoints frame our relationship with nature, with other beings?
And this isn't just a private disagreement, is it? It escalates.
Oh, absolutely. Devadatta gets angry and rings and yell, Gant the bell for justice. He wants the assembly to rule on this.
Over a bird. Seems like a big deal.
It signifies the importance of the underlying principles they're fighting over. And Siddhartha's argument in the assembly is, well, quite profound for the narrative.
What does he say?
He essentially questions the core identity of a Kshatriya, a warrior. Is their purpose just to inflict pain, like in hunting? Or is it also to offer protection?
Challenging the traditional warrior ethos.
Exactly. He says something really striking. The world should increase in affection, not pain. It connects directly back to his emerging philosophy of compassion. How does that land for you? Thinking about strength versus compassion.
And how does the assembly react? I mean, that sounds quite radical compared to the hunter's right argument.
It seems to sway them. Even the cool guru, Vachaspati, the family's main teacher, appears to lean towards Siddhartha's side.
So compassion seems to be winning out over tradition in this instance.
It certainly looks that way. It's presented as a key moment, showing Siddhartha's core values, solidifying empathy, protection of life, valuing affection over harm. A real contrast to conventional Kshatriya duties focused on fighting and hunting.
Okay, so we've seen public crises and ethical debates. Let's look a bit closer at the family, the domestic side. There's an incident with Mahadevi, Siddhartha's stepmother. She gets ill.
Yes, she faints. And there's this sort of murmur or suspicion that maybe it was from drinking Samras, this special drink.
And that rings a bell somehow.
It apparently mirrors something that happened with Siddhartha's birth mother in the past. So it brings this layer of unease, maybe. Historical resonance within the family.
It adds a personal vulnerability, doesn't it? Amidst all the statecraft and philosophy. It makes you wonder, the learner, how these past family events might be casting shadows on the present.
Then, sort of connected to her health, comes the announcement that Mahadevi is pregnant.
Which should be happy news, right? An heir is on the way.
It is presented as joyous, yes. But there's a little bit of a foreshadowing, perhaps. Siddhartha's friend, Kunj, makes a joke.
What kind of joke?
Something like, oh, now Siddhartha will have someone else to fight with, meaning the new sibling. Just a casual remark.
But Mahadevi doesn't take it lightly.
No, the script notes she has a concerned reaction. It's subtle, but it hints that maybe things won't be entirely simple with two potential heirs in the picture.
Interesting. These little moments, they weave together the personal relationships and the expectations of royalty. Even good news might have complicated undercurrents.
That anxiety becomes much clearer later, in a scene between Mahadevi and Maya, who I believe is portrayed here as Siddhartha's birth mother figure or relative who raised him.
Right, what happens there?
Mahadevi sees Maya placing statues, Rama and Krishna, near where Siddhartha and the future baby will be. Symbols of wishing well for both, presumably.
Okay, a nice gesture.
But then Mahadevi makes this very emotional play to Maya. She asks Maya to raise Siddhartha as her own son.
Why would she ask that?
She says she's worried she won't be able to give both children equal attention. She fears the new baby will always be like a question mark next to Siddhartha.
A question mark, meaning like a constant comparison or a reminder that Siddhartha isn't her biological son in the same way.
Possibly. She explicitly asks Maya to take away all of Siddhartha's suffering. It's quite intense. What did this reveal to you, the learner, about the pressures and anxieties even for a queen?
It shows incredible depth in her feelings for Siddhartha, her stepson. She foresees potential difficulties, jealousies, or just the complexity of the situation and wants to protect him. It says a lot about her character.
It really underscores the vulnerability of Siddhartha's position, maybe? Even as a prince, the arrival of the king's biological child with the current queen could shift things. It's a very human moment amidst the royal setting.
And then there's one last interaction we should touch on between Siddhartha and Yashodhara. He brings her a gift.
Not jewels or anything typical, though.
No, he brings her seeds.
Seeds. Okay, why seeds?
His explanation is quite poetic. He says every seed holds a forest. Planting them will fill the land with flowers, which will remind her of him and help affection grow between them.
Connecting back to that theme of affection.
Yeah.
Remembering increases affection, he says, echoing his words about the bird. The world should increase in affection.
It's a different way of thinking about value, isn't it? Not material wealth, but potential, growth, connection through memory and shared experience. How does that resonate with you?
It definitely reinforces his core philosophy we saw developing earlier. It's about nurturing life, nurturing connection, rather than conquest or possession. A very consistent worldview emerging.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really unpacked quite a bit from this one episode's narrative.
Yeah, complex themes of justice, like with Gowrie and the king's shifting perspective. Deep questions about responsibility, who bears it, and why.
And the emergence of compassion as a central value, especially through Siddhartha's actions with the bird and his gift of seeds, contrasting views on duty, tradition versus empathy.
And for you, the learner, hopefully this gives you a richer understanding of the story itself, but also these timeless ideas it explores.
Maybe think about how these concepts, leadership, fairness, taking responsibility, compassion, how they show up in your own world, your own life.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to maybe mull over.
Yeah.
What does this story suggest true strength really is?
Is it just about having power, following old rules without question?
Or is there maybe more strength in the courage to choose compassion, to take responsibility even when it's hard, like Siddhartha or even the king tried to do? What kind of person, what kind of leader does this narrative ultimately seem to value most?